Hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar about the challenges of local reporting requirements and more importantly, how to solve them. My name is Robert and today I will be your host. Before I introduce the speaker next to me, first some practical information. This is a live webinar, meaning that you can ask questions. You can do so by click on the chat icon at the top right of your screen. We will not be able to answer them all, but we do have a moderator who is happy to answer questions directly. This webinar will last about 15 to 20 minutes. And that's it. Let's start. So today I have with me Ruben Luteijn. Welcome.
Thank you,
are
Robert.
Enterprise Customer Success Manager at Speak Up.
That's right.
And you advised over 200 companies on the local reporting requirements. So welcome. So what is that, a Customer Success Manager at Speak Up?
Yes, thank you, Robert. So Customer Success Manager, my role is basically to be the main focal point between the relationship that we have with our clients. So we help our clients when onboarding and any potential challenges that they might run into afterwards while working with Speak Up and our misconduct reporting tool.
Yeah, again, very welcome. So before we start and dive into the topic itself, let's clarify one thing. What do we mean when we say local reporting requirements?
Yes, good question. So of course, there's a lot of different types of legislation out there, all basically impacting reporting. Most notably and most recently, of course, the European Whistleblowing Protection Directive. The directive, in a nutshell, basically says that you need to inform, as a company or an organization, your reporters about the different reporting options. Mm-hmm. And you are basically then required to inform them about their internal reporting options, where they can directly engage with you. Also, external options to competent authorities. Here in the Netherlands, that's, for example, Huis voor Klokkenluiders, the House of Whistleblowing.
Yeah.
And even external options, for example, directly into the media. And it depends, for example, if the internal options are not suitable, or the reporter feels that they're not basically being listened to, that then can escalate basically to the other options.
Yeah.
And also making it so that the first option is therefore, of course, the most important, as a company you would prefer to receive all the reports internally.
Yeah.
If we're then talking about local reporting options, it's mostly related actually to that first element, so the internal reporting mechanisms within an organization. And it's then applicable mostly to multinational companies who operate in different member states of the European Union. Mm-hmm. Because part of the directive basically says that you need to inform reporters about the option to report either locally or to the headquarters of a company. And that is basically what we are talking about today.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So let's dive a little bit into the challenges. So what challenges do organizations face based on your experience with the local reporting requirements?
Yes, so it's not always clear what a channel in itself means. And that causes some confusion for many of our clients. And at the same time, the directive in itself basically provided an outline in terms of legislation, and the different member states are now implementing that independently, of course, international legislation. And we see that there can be some local differences here and there, and especially for companies operating throughout the different member states. That can pose a challenge because in a certain member state, the requirements might be slightly different, and that can cause some confusion here and there.
So let's say sort of interpretation. When we spoke about this before, you said interpretation.
Yes,
I think that's the correct word, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, then it's mostly about how do we indeed interpret what a channel is? So sometimes, of course, what we provide is really a technical solution. But a local reporting option can also be interpreted as just a mechanism to communicate directly, for example, with the local compliance department or with the HR offices directly. And what constitutes as a local reporting channel, we see that there are differences in interpretation. there is another challenge that companies do face when dealing with local reporting requirements, and that's the fact that most of their resources, especially looking at investigations, are centralized. So let's say you are indeed like a multinational company, most of your investigation resources are pulled together. Part of the requirement now says that you also need to handle all those local reports on a local level, meaning that you also need to perform those investigations locally. That in itself is quite a challenge because not all the companies have those kind of resources available on a local level.
Yeah.
And as a result, how do you then deal with that as a company?
Yeah, can imagine. I see that there's a light popping up in the studio. That means that there's a question coming in. Thank you very much for the question. And the question is, which aspect of local reporting requirements do you find most challenging?
Yes, good question, of course. Well, I can answer it also personally, maybe, because like what I myself find most challenging is how to best advise our clients about this. And of course, we're talking about all kinds of legislation and legal topics. We are not a law firm, so it's also not my intention to provide legal advice. However, we are in a unique position where we gather quite a lot of different insights from all the client conversations that we have. So if I look at, what do I find most challenging is, providing a pragmatic and legal advice. But I think we can do that actually by combining all the insights and best practices that we have gathered from our clients.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. Thank you, Rut, for asking the question. Okay, let's move on. So let's say from the perspective of both the reporter and the organization, is it better, you think, to report to local channels or a group channel?
I think that really depends on the type of allegation and the report that a potential reporter might look to make. And that maybe also ties into how should we then inform those reporters to make that decision. And because the directive basically says, we need to provide the reporters the option to report either locally or to the group. But it's not always clear, at least from my perspective, in which case should I do what? And especially if we think about, that there might be not enough, let's say, investigative resources available at the local level, inform the reporters about the fact that the group might be best equipped to actually perform these type of investigations. And thereby you can steer the reporters towards a channel and a mechanism that's most effective ultimately for you as a company. Mm-hmm. And thereby it also helps actually the reporter in itself. But the fact that you need to properly basically advise and inform them about those different options is most essential.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another question that I have. So if we look at, so we know the challenges now. Let's dive a little bit into the solutions. So what are the solutions for organizations to effectively manage and comply with the local reporting requirements?
I'd say it's hard to be compliant with every legislation out there. So also what I talk about with many of the clients that are just implementing a Speak Up channel is to consider your risk appetite. So how much are you willing to balance the scale of being fully paper compliant versus operating an effective reporting mechanism? Because sometimes they slightly contradict. Just as an example, if you really want to be compliant with every single piece of legislation out there, you might forced to ask a lot of questions to reporters. They need to check the box that this is not an emergency channel and that they should call 111 instead. If you take that approach, you become very paper compliant, mm-hmm. but you might not have the most effective reporting mechanism out there. So I would first say, of course you want to be legally compliant, but do not lose track of the spirit of the directive in itself, mm-hmm. and also the reason why you operate a reporting channel in the first place, and that is to engage with your reporters and to battle misconduct.
Yeah, clear. There's another light popping up, I see. So that means another question. Thank you, Mara. The question is, how often should organizations review and update their whistleblowing policies to stay compliant with changing legal landscapes? Good question.
Yes, definitely. And I wish I could sort of give a black and white answer there, but the honest answer is I think it is a continuous process, especially sort of in the current environment. The European Whistleblowing Directive has been transposed now by almost every member state, but it is an ever-changing landscape. In Germany, we have the Lieferkettengesetz, the German Supply Chain Act. We have the EU, what do you call it? Also the EU Supply Chain Act coming up. And therefore, you will be required to continuously monitor the legal landscape. And I would say not even the legal landscape, it is important to monitor the effectiveness of your program in its entirety, also on a continuous basis.
Yeah. I hope that answers your questions, Mara. Final question then. So, okay, I'm watching this webinar and I know I have to comply. And you also told something about the purpose of creating, let's say, a speak-up culture, or where you enable people to speak up. So what are the next steps to take then?
I would say to define for you as a company what constitutes as a local reporting channel. We have always said, of course, Speak Up, the platform that we provide, is always supposed to be implemented as a last reporting option. So you can very well establish local reporting channels without, let's say, a technical solution in itself. Directing reporters to local compliance officers, to local HR departments can be a very effective way to actually also already comply with legislation, and thereby you create a local reporting option, while at the same time you continue to have a centralized whistleblowing system where you can also pool your investigative resources at the group level. Some organizations also choose to pool the investigative resources from smaller local entities together and basically share those responsibilities.
Yeah. Thank you, Ruben. I see that we're running out of time, so we have to round up this webinar. And thank you all for tuning in. We understand that this is a topic that we cannot cover in 15 minutes. Yes, there's more to it. So we did give you some general ideas, general questions. If you want to know more in-depth information, please let us know in the evaluation form. We're happy to come back to you. So if you close the screen, an evaluation form will pop up. Please share your questions with us and we're happy to answer them. Again, thank you very much and stay tuned for next webinars where we dive into more topics like these. All right, thank you for watching and enjoy your day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.